All right, let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. For the students in Fairfax City, we are very grateful that Saro Cosentino accepted our invitation to our show. Saro, welcome to my humble podcast.
Thank you, and I'm very pleased for the invitation.
No problem, Saro. Saro, let's go back to the beginning. Were you born like in a musical family? I mean, how old were you when you perhaps began taking, I don't know, guitar lessons or piano lessons?
Yeah, I started with piano lesson when I was little, but then football got the best of me. So I rather go play football with my friends than play piano. But then when I was like 12, I started to really get into music and play a little bit of guitar. And then I realized that, music could do that magic thing that other things wouldn't. So that, was the start of understanding that was what was making me happy and that what I wanted to do in my life, and then I started from there. Yeah, then I took lesson, I learned to play, and I played bass in a school band, like almost every musician went through that type of training.
Like in high school, you were in bands with your friends.
And then you start playing in little clubs and you do a little band, and then you grow from there, which I think it's not happening much now for the young players. They have less opportunity to play before they get, to the vast audience, because mainly now they go through the talent show. So that, when they want to do a career in music, the first thing they do is try to get into one of those talents, and I think that's that's not the right way to do it. You need to learn how to face an audience and start from the bottom. And well, if you're thrown in front of 5,000 people, it's difficult the first time. Just like you need to get there slowly. And I don't think it's I don't know in the States, but definitely in Europe it's very difficult for young musicians to find an audience. Clubs are trying to they have a DJ or just like they play music, and rarely there are live bands. But I mean, here in Prague there are some jazz clubs that are keeping the music alive, but for the rest of the genre it's quite difficult.
So when you finished high school, you were any pressure for your family about go to university, become a lawyer, engineer, forget about music, you're not going to make any money, it's crazy.
Yeah, my dad wanted me to go to become to the economic school. There is an economic school famous in Milan called Bocconi. He wanted me to go there. And instead I went to a university in Bologna that was art, music, and cinema. And he wasn't very pleased with that, but then he realized that was what I wanted to do, and that was it. I mean, you have to make choices. And,
I got you. And at the beginning of your life, you were collaborator with a lot of. You were in the Italian blues scene, right? 1970.
Yeah. I started playing acoustic blues, and I was playing with an Italian musician, harmonicist called Fabio Treves. And he, we did a lot of concerts, and it was good, it's good learning process. And then, it's pretty limited because that's not our, you sort of mimic a tradition that is not yours, so you can only get to a sort of copy
somebody else's, right?
Yeah, it's like, it was a bit limiting, so that I stopped doing that and I moved to something else. But I think it was good to do it. It was you learn the basics. And, it was interesting.
And then also I read in your website that you tried a lot of different things before the music. You did, for example, theater a lot. That you think how difficult it was for transition to starting your career in music and go to theater before you went to start with. It was difficult.
Well, actually, theater I work in as a musician, not as an actor. So,
Okay.
that was like, it was just, it's interesting, fascinating, working in a theater for music, because you're sort of part of the building structure, live. While if you work for music, for cinema, for example, they send you the scenes and then you react to that. While in theater, it's all live, so it's quite interesting. But it takes a long time. Theaters takes away a lot of your time, and you have to be very committed. And, I, at the time, I was doing also my own thing, so I couldn't just commit myself completely to that. But it was a good experience. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. How old were you at the time? You were early 20s, right? When
Yeah,
you
early
were-
20s. Yeah.
Yeah. And with the money in general term was okay when you surviving on your
That was
own?
that was the 80s, and in the 80s, the records were a major thing. People were buying records, like if you were happy, like lucky to get a good single, you could sell, few 100,000 copies, and then you would have contract. I had a contract with EMI at the time, which doesn't exist anymore. I think it was bought by Sony and then bought by someone else. Anyway, they buy each other. So the life as a musician wasn't as difficult as it is now, where we make nothing with all the streaming services. So I mean, in the 80s, people, if you want to listen to music, they would go out and buy a record.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, Bandcamp didn't exist, or Spotify didn't exist.
No,
People wanted
Bandcamp
to listen to music.
is actually good. But Spotify, Apple Music, all the other streaming platform, it's peanuts. It's nothing. You get ridiculous
$10. Yeah,
amount.
you
So
will have a million hits, a million views, listens, and then you get a check for $10.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, which
you can't live like that, And that means that if a musician has to survive, he has to do another job, and that takes away time to study, time to learn, time to perfect your craft. And so in time, if it's going to be like this, we will have amateur musicians, and or only the rich people can afford it. And I mean, if you're not from a rich family, you won't be able to do it, which is a shame.
Yeah, right. Because if you get another job to pay the bill, then you don't have enough time to dedicate to music, and vice versa.
No.
Then the quality is not that great, right? So, right. So
exactly.
it's like a trade-off, and then so in theater, and then early in your life also you began working with different Italian filmmakers, I assume, and creating music for films as well, right?
Yeah, that came later on. Before, I was working as a composer, a producer with some of the Italian artists. Cinema came like when I was in the late 30s.
And then it's difficult, the role, let's say, of the producer versus the songwriter, because are two different skill sets, right? You manage a band, or become a producer is hard, difficult.
It's different because when you do your own album or or you write your song, then you are the focus of what you're doing. But when you're producing someone else, you're trying to get the best out of the artist you're working with. And you have to remember that it's not your album, but you have to, sort of pull out what's already there in the artist you're working with. And that, if you realize that it's not your album, so you don't have to push your own ideas, but sort of, be there to nurture the ideas of the artist, then, then is a good starting point. Then, of course, there are all the technical tricks and things that every craftsman knows, but the main thing I believe is just like focus on the artist, not on your own ego.
Right, you don't want to push your album. You have somebody else's album, and you want to improve it and do the best you can to take it to the next level, right? So
it's not about you, I mean, you're there to serve a project that is not your project, but it's someone else's project. So you bring your own experience and expertise to the work on someone else, and that should be clear. It should be clear that it's not your thing. You don't have to insist on something that is not helping the artist.
Yeah, because it's like, I imagine that some cases can be a bit complicated because, the artists want to do this. You say, well, that's great, but as a producer, I recommend you to do this, whatever that means. It gotta be like a little bit of conflict on going back and forth, but at the end, you're getting paid to help the artist, right? So you need to do what they want, whether you like it or not, right? So,
well, I mean, you can suggest things. You can say, you've been doing this until now. What if we go that
we try this, right?
We try this, and I think that rather than forcing people, it's better to get there with seduction. Just like to make them interested into something rather than say you should do this. Because I think works best.
I got you. Are you still playing the role of a producer with other bands, or you are?
Yeah. I've done an album with an Italian artist called Cronauer, and it will be out in October, I think. Yeah, I do off and on. Yeah.
The project.
I'll do it. Still do it.
I got it. How you end up doing in your early 30s the transition from theater, being a producer, a songwriter, and into soundtracks as well, and creating music for films?
Well,
go ahead, because that's fascinating.
That's something I always wanted to do, but nobody called me. So everybody was saying, "Oh, your music would be perfect for movies. Would be perfect for movies," but nobody was calling me. Then finally, you get the first movie, and then people realize the movie industry is very conservative in their way. I mean, they want to work with someone that they know they can trust, not because it's good, but because he has done it before. So you do the first one, and then the people realize that you could do it. Then it's easier. It's the first one always the tough one. No, I find writing for film very interesting because it puts a limitation on your work. Because the worst thing for an artist is to put a blank page in front of you and say you can do anything, and that's where you stop. But if they tell you, okay, we are in 18th century. And it's a story of a girl, and then you sort of limit, the area, and then limitation I think are very good for creativity because you need to to pull out what with few elements. If you have, it's like on synthesizer, you have like 2,000 sounds, and before you choose one, you spend it all day. Well, if you have only the guitar, then that's what it does, and then you have to come up with an idea. I think so. Limitation is a good help for creativity, and films is like you have to dream the dream of someone else, which is the director, and you have to enter into his dream and leave that story, which is not your dream. It's a bit like producing, but you are more creative in film.
And sometimes you see in the film industry, you end up creating music for a film, and for one reason or another, the director doesn't like it, become a rejected score, and then you need to work again, and can be sometimes a difficult process, right? And also, sometimes the budget is not that much. I mean, the music is created like 80-90%, and then the little bit of money is left. The director said, well, we need to figure out about now that we are almost done with the film, who will compose our music, and how long. And sometimes you don't have enough time. You may have, I don't know, 5-6 weeks to grow, right?
Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes, fortunately, you start working on the screenplay. So before the movie starts, they send you the screenplay, so you have more time to imagine, what world you're gonna create. But sometimes happens that they shoot the movie and then they realize they don't have the music, so they call you up and say, we have like 4 weeks to to finish, and we're editing already. So they send you stuff every day, and you have to work under very hard pressure, which is okay sometimes. I mean, like keeps you on your toes, and it could be.
It seems to me that you like to be like a structure, right? Like being the pressure. If some people have too much, oh, I will do it next week.
Oh,
You
that
get
you can't do that in films, because there are so many people working at the same time, and
right.
if you don't deliver, the process stops, and so you're gonna be replaced, So
Yeah,
you
I
have
got
to
it.
be in time. Yeah, you have to be in time.
How long do you have, for example, when in the past or right now, if a particular director were to hire you, you have enough time for like 4 weeks to write film, five
It
weeks?
really depends from project to project.
I
It's
got it.
sometimes they call you before they start shooting the movie. Sometimes they
I
call
got it.
you after. Sometimes they call you during while they're shooting, and that depends on the schedule of the movies, And because normally they try to go to festivals, so okay, we have to go to Berlin, or we have to go to Cannes, or we have to go to Venice. So they have to deliver, and they have deadlines. Other times it's more relaxed, if you work with something that is not going to a festival, and so they give you more time. But usually, again, because there are a lot of people. I mean, while you're working on the music, there is the editors that are working on that. There is the coloring. There is the dubbing. I mean, there is a lot of people working at the same time. So it's like it's a big machine, different than when you're making an album. It's
Yeah.
much more, it's smaller, in size.
Man, there are so many great film composers that came or coming nowadays from Italy. Like when Ennio Morricone
He was
was a big name. He was way up there, right? So
yeah, it was
with,
amazing. It really
with Jerry
amazing.
Goldsmith and John Williams and so on, right? So
Yeah,
from
there's.
different countries.
I think that film music is really the classical music of this century. I mean, like the most interesting composers went into the film music. I mean, Morricone was always snubbed by the elite of the composers in Italy because he was playing in the 60s, because he was working for films, But then he was much, much better than any other composer of his time. I mean, he was way ahead. And so fortunately, film music is not considered like like a B, like a minus art compared to the pure music, which is good. I think that is
Yeah, kind of. Let's talk about the album, the Road to Now.
Yeah. Okay.
Man, that's a masterpiece. It's very, very well done. I have listened to the album. I think last night or a couple of days ago, I went to Bandcamp and I buy a lot of your stuff, a lot of your music, so I could listen to, because I don't like to pay to Spotify if I can pay the musician directly.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem. Man, that's a very, very good album, man. You have a lot of big names, so feel free to elaborate. The idea from the concept, how you knew who you need to bring, how you decide. I want to use Team Bowness for this track. I know I'm Peter Hammill for the third track, another four, and so forth. How in your head you're able to
Well,
decide?
it's a bit like being a director, where you choose the actors.
Yeah.
You have like a story, and then you think, oh, okay, for that character, that actor would be perfect. For me, it's a bit like that, like I have a song, and I think, oh, Tim would be great on this one, because the way he sings, he emotes, and Hammill, on the contrary, on other tracks, and I mean, I have the luck to work with fantastic singers and musicians, and also Karen Eden is.
Karen, yeah.
So it's for me it's a luxury to be able to to choose and have the right singer for the song. And same thing with musicians, you know, it's like you call a certain musician because you know he's really good at that thing, you know, and yeah, it takes a long time, you know, to put it together because everybody is busy with their own tour and projects, but I'd rather do it slowly than rush, you know. I mean, the world doesn't need my album every year, you know. The world goes ahead happily without it. So when I put something out, I'd rather put something that I think is good, and that I like it. You know, then you know you may like it or not, but I have to be happy with what I'm doing.
And then the majority was work was done during the pandemic, right?
Well, some of it was done, yeah, during the pandemic, sending files
back and forth to different people all over the world, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
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 And-
Fortunately, you know, most of the musicians now, they are sort of self-sufficient. So they have some kind of structure of studio at home. So you don't really need to, you know, to go in a studio to do certain things, you know. So that was good because during pandemic, people could, you know, like record the vocals at home and send it over and without, you know, the necessity to be in the same place.
Yeah.
So traveling was impossible, and you know all of that. We all know what happened.
Yeah, and in the case of Peter and then Tim, you have worked with them in the past, right? So
Yeah. We worked
in the previous albums.
Yeah, we
And current.
we go back to the late 90s, so it's about 30 something, 35 years, yeah, of friendship, you know, mainly. And they're good guys, you know. I mean, for me, the human aspect is as important as the talent as an artist, you know. I have to consider both elements. If someone is very talented, but
Not a good person
yeah, I'm not,
or
you know,
rude or whatever, right? It wouldn't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think that's, you know, because I believe that comes through when you play. You know, I mean, you play what you are. You know, in the end of the day, it comes out in your music, and so I rather, you know, surround myself with people I like. And,
Yeah, I got it. And then, so when, in general term, when you work with Peter Hammill or Tim or Karen, you trade like a different favor. They say, okay, I'm not going to charge you anything, but I'm going to need your help to this part
Well,
of music in
it
one of my
varies.
records,
It
or
varies
get royalties.
from case to case. You know,
Yeah.
normally we co-write because they write the lyrics.
I got it. Yeah.
50-50, you know.
In the right music, right? Yeah.
And which I think is right. And yeah, then with musicians, some are paid, some are like, you know, I play on your album, you play on mine, and you know, it depends. It varies from situation to situation.
The album, as I mentioned before, I listened to many times, and I like that you include the CD, you know, the lyrics and some pictures. It's very, very well done. Did you? It was how the album did? It did okay. I mean, you able to record that investment a little bit, or I mean, make a little bit of money.
Yeah, we did vinyl and CD, and yeah, it's doing pretty well. Yeah, and you know, it's also something that, you know, it doesn't finish in 3 months. You know, it's not like pop music, so we'll keep going. And
you record that investment in for that time until, I don't know, 2-3 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have to, you know, think long terms.
Is it difficult to make a career as a musician in general? I mean, you always struggle and you don't know where the next paycheck is coming from, or
well, it's like you know, I think that every musician experiences the fact that when you finish one job, you don't know if you ever get another one ever, you know, but then eventually you do. But I think that's you know, something that every artist experiences. You know, probably a painter sells a painting and then he thinks, you know, will I ever sell another one? Yeah, it's part of the risk, you know, it's part of the job. But I mean, you have to be very committed. It's not a simple thing to do. You know, you have to be very stable, you know, in what you do and believe in what you're doing. Because it's not easy, you know. I mean, if you look at a career as a musician, you know, there are moments in which you're very, very famous and moments in which, you know, it's very difficult. But overall, you do it because it's important for you. You know, if you don't have that, then, you know, do something else. But if it matters to you more than anything else, more than, you know, buying a fast car or a boat or an expensive watch, then it's your life, you know? And that's what you do because it matters to you.
Yeah. Were you able to tour a little bit with that particular album, or is
No, it would be very difficult to put all those together, and I don't have an audience vast enough to justify the investment.
Yeah, got it.
I didn't want to do like a, you know, like a sort of karaoke version of the album. So I rather not do it if it has to be, you know, sort of two people on stage with all the backup on a computer. I don't think it's, you know, it's right. I like
on one hand, you need to be, you know, big enough in terms of fame.
Yeah, to have enough.
Release ticket and higher club, and then pay Peter Hammill to show up, and then Tim Bowness and Karen.
The band, you know, Gavin,
put it together, you know, rehearsal, expensive, you know, so.
Yeah, traveling, you know, if you don't have a return, then you end up
losing money.
And a backup track on a computer. But, you know, if there is a drum, I want to see a drummer. I don't, you know, it's like, I don't like that sort of scale down. I'd rather do another project in which is all, you know, based on 2 or 3 musicians rather than scale
down, playing in a small club and losing a lot of money. Yeah, I imagine so. That's, as I said before, that's a great album. Before you did in 2021 with Nicola Alesini, the album Cities, which is, that is a great album as well, man.
We're working on the 2nd volume now.
Really?
Yeah, and that's for me that's a great escape from songwriting because it's an instrumental project. So I could, you know, I could explore other territories, and which is a luxury for me, you know. And I'm lucky to work with Nicola, which is a very talented musician, and so it's a good diversion for me, and you know, I could do things that I cannot do on the songwriting because it's the structure of the song. It's requests a certain you know, geometry, so to speak. While in a sort of a free form, you could experiment other languages and other forms, and that for me it's a very interesting place to be.
Got it. And then you say you're working nowadays with him in another project?
We're working on the 2nd album. When it's finished, we'll put it out. Yeah, we're almost there.
I got it. Usually, in general, because it's easy or difficult to manage a lot of projects at the same time. You're working with him, you're working with somebody else, or you try to put your all into one, finish and then go to the next one, finish and then go to the next one.
I try not to work on more than one thing at a time.
Yeah,
because I tend to be a bit obsessive when I'm working on something. So just my mind is, you know,
all your energy, motivation goes into one.
It needs to be 100% on the project I have. If I have to switch and then move on to something else, then it doesn't work for me. You know, it may work for other people, but I need to be focused 100% on something. Then I move to something else.
I got it. Yeah. As I say, I listened to the album a couple of days ago, and it's very, very good. Very, very good. I mean, it seemed to me that the two of you have very good rapport. I mean, coming from the same country, I get along well, and that's reflected to the music, you know. So
yeah. I hope so. I hope that comes through. Yeah.
Oh yeah, comes through. Oh, absolutely, man, absolutely. It's a great album. And also in 2015, going back, is another great album you end up creating. It's the album, I think, is called Ones and Zeros
Yeah, that
Reloaded,
was
right?
a reprint. Yeah, same band, same people.
Mm.
Tim, Peter Hammill, Karen, Gavin Harrison, the late John Giblin. There was a good friend that we missed, that we lost last year. Unfortunately, it was a great man and a great bass player. And I've seen him a lot. And then there was Shankar on violin, and Kutsir Gunnar, which is a Sufi master and a fantastic ney flute player. Yeah, so it was a good group of people that I was lucky to work with.
Yeah, and you have, I was looking for the people that you have worked with in that project on the past, like Tony Levin and David Rose and Peter Hammill,
Yeah, of course,
and
David is
Gavin
playing on both.
Harrison. Man, those are big names, man.
Yeah, but they're
Good for you.
fantastic. It's fantastic people, also.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm lucky to have them as a friend, but they're lovely people, and I think that is because they're fantastic musicians, because that comes through when they put their hands on an instrument. They all very very personal approach to music, and
Yeah.
which is it's great. I mean, when you have your place and you have your sound, and I mean, David, when he plays guitar, after two notes, he's in, and that's something that is amazing. It's like fantastic for a musician to have a voice.
Yeah, I went to the last tour of Peter Gabriel.
Yep.
I saw him in United States like 3 times, and then I went to, actually no, before. So I went to Verona.
Oh, the arena.
And then the day after they played Milan, so I saw 2 shows because I flew there with the family, and then they came back here, and I saw here in the United States, and man, what a show from that one. I mean,
Peter,
Tony's unbelievable, Peter and David Rose and everybody involved.
Yeah, it's a great band, and also Peter puts a lot of energy into the show. Like the.
Oh yeah.
It's really fun to watch. Yeah.
Verona is a beautiful city. It was a beautiful amphitheater. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the arena is it's a great
arena.
place.
Yeah. Milan is a bigger city. It's a different kind of different show. But the one in Verona was beautiful, and I have still great memories from the show, man.
Oh yeah. It's a magic place. They do an opera.
Opera, right?
Yeah.
There,
without amplification. So it's like it's the amphitheater amplifies the voices of the singers and the orchestra.
Yeah.
And it's magic also for the opera. It's like it's always full. All the season it's sold out, and it's a magic place. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, if you want to see a good concert, that's one of the places to be. Rather than a sport or sports hall.
Yeah, maybe one day I will move to Europe, so I can go to city to different concert. We'll see what happened. And the other soundtrack, I listened to a lot of different things for you. The one that I found on Spotify called Romanzo Radicale.
Yeah.
Man, that album it's very, very good, man. Very, very good.
Thank you. There was a movie about an Italian leader, and there is a lot of music in that movie. It's like more than an hour of music, which is a lot for a movie. Usually you write 2 or 3 themes and that's it for the whole movie. But the director wanted a lot of different things, so I had to come up with a lot of ideas, which is pretty good. Yeah, I mean the thing of Spotify is that the record company put it out at a very low volume in the mastering, so it's kind of hard to listen to when you compare it to the rest of the. But I had no saying
Control. Yeah.
unfortunately. So,
Is there the possibility for the record label to, I don't know how that works, but to upload to Spotify more of your music? Or
well,
you
I
have no
usually,
control? Because you have done a lot.
yeah, some of the stuff is still owned by, I mean, my early stuff is owned by EMI. I did an album in 1987, and they own the master. The album is out of print, and I cannot do anything. You know, I try to contact them and tell them to, you know, I'll buy it, and but they say, oh, we don't know. It's just like it's incorporate, you know. And that happens to a lot of musicians, that they don't have the rights of their own album, and you know, the record company doesn't put it out, and so it get lost. That's why now I own all my music, you know.
You can do whatever you want with that, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
Because you know, I don't want to be again in a situation like that.
and then if you were to call EMI what doesn't exist, but they wouldn't, the master need to be somewhere, right? They are not lost or not.
I don't know. Yeah, they should. You know, if you think of the amount of records that were made, you know,
Thousands, millions, right?
and
There gotta be a store somewhere, right? Or
the problem is that also that was all on tape, you know, and tape
degrade over time, right? It's not digital, right?
so you have to cook the tape, and I think that probably a lot of things will be lost, which is you know, which is a shame, really. No, I mean, not in my case, but in general, you know, like there are some fantastic recording that you need to, you know, to transfer to digital to keep it, you know. Yeah, it's all the old multi-tracks, you know, all that stuff. It's gonna be lost.
Yeah, every so often I read in the news that, man, a particular place, you know, was robbed or was a fire or whatever, this or that, and a lot of tapes, and they're lost and forever. You know, it's not that you can.
Yeah.
It's not digital. It's not that you can. Oh, you can. You have the digital masterpiece. You know, you can make copies and
digital,
update
you
and
know,
upgrade it, but
yeah,
it's not the case with analog, right? So
analog is a problem because you know, once you lose it, you lose it. There's no going back, you know.
yeah.
So that's one good thing about digital. That's, you know, if it's out, then it's out. You know, it's like someone will have a copy somewhere. You know?
Got it. Sorry.
Because I see sometimes people that recorded in the 80s on VHS the TV show or some appearance, and that's fantastic because otherwise the TV didn't record it or didn't keep it. You know, and there were some amazing performances that would be lost, you know. So it's like a good thing that YouTube, you know, resurrect all those things, and you know, otherwise it'd be forgotten.
As a musician, is it difficult to obtain the music, right? Your music. I mean, if you go to a record label, right, they will put a lot of restriction on you, right? If you release your album on your own, of course you have all the right to everything. How you manage that? What's the trade-off?
Well, you know, the power of the record label was mainly distribution. You know, I mean, in the 80s or in the 70s, if you want your album out, you know, the only way was go to a record company because they had facility to print the vinyl and then afterward the CDs, and then they distribute into the record store. Now the record store are very few, and the main distribution goes through the platforms. So they lost that power, you know, and unless you're doing a very mainstream pop act, I don't think that for other musicians is interesting to go with a major label, because they will, you know, try to push in a direction in which they think they will make more money, which is mainly addressing an audience that is adolescent. But those are the ones that don't buy the records, but they, they listen to Spotify. They probably listen, many times. There are those millions of, but they switch, because it's like what happened with boy band. They like one, then the next month they like another, then another. And there are artists, for example, Peter Hammill, Peter Gabriel, that they've been making music for 50, 60 years, and they keep going, and so it's I don't think it's an advantage now to sign with a label unless they give you a massive advance. The thing with record label is that you're always in debt. You're never. They give you an advance and then they cut what they call container charges. So like record gave them the promotion, then they finance your tour, and then that goes back. So it's always, you always have to deliver a new album to sort of cope the advance that they gave you. I think that nowadays the major, unless they are very specific, like for example ECM, that they have their own niche. All the others are, not relevant in a cultural way. I mean, they're not coming out with interesting things. There are the small labels or the independent guys that come up with with the most interesting thing, at least for me.
Because I have interviewed several musicians that they tell me, well, the budget, whatever, I don't know what the number will be, but let's say $50,000, okay?
Yeah.
The budget for they give you a little advance, but then they need to subtract all the studio costs, promotion, these.
That's
You
what
end
I'm
up
saying.
making, out of the 50, you end up making $2,000.
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they deduct this, we did this for you, we did that for you. So
Yeah.
you have no control of that. They can.
They own the master.
Yeah. And you end up out of the 50,000, hypothetically number, you end up making only 2,000, right? All the leftover, right?
Yeah, and then you have nothing, because the studio time is not. I mean, I rather invest money to buy equipment than
on your own, right?
Yeah. My own, yeah. I think that in the last years, the musicians are closer to other artists like painters and sculptors, where you have your own studio, you come up with your own things without the need to go to big studios, and most of the things you can do now, technology is very affordable now, so it's a good thing. You can make a good album with a laptop now.
And with a good computer, like $2,000-3,000 computer, whatever, with graphic card, you can do pretty much a lot on your own, right? So and then somebody else would mix it. In your case, the Road now, I think it was mixed and mastered at Abbey Road. Real well, right?
Yeah, the mixing, the mastering I've done myself, but the mixing I had it done there because I needed to detach myself to because I've listened to so much. I needed an extra pair of ears to work on it.
It's always. I have heard that in general, the person who is mixing it should not be mastering, and vice versa, right? Because you are. If you hire me, right, I'm looking from the other side, right? I'm not biased against your stuff, right? You deliver something with me, I will give you to the best I can, right? But if you do it yourself, man, you dedicate more portion to this because your boys or team Bowness will put more pressure. No, I want my boys to be higher, or Peter Hammill, whatever, whatever. So you are told you're inside the box. You're unbiased to listen to your own things.
There is
right?
one thing which is dangerous when you are working for a long time on a project, is that anything new will make you excited, but that is not necessarily what is better for the track. So if there is a new thing happening, you say, oh, that's great, because it's something that you haven't heard before. But then you have to be wise enough to realize that is the excitement of the news, but not necessarily is something good for the track. So being detached, it's also a good strategy sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, what is the last 2, 3 questions? What is coming up for you, Saro? You say you're working with the other Italian friend. Are you anything on down the road in film score, working with other musicians? What do you have coming up, if you can?
Well, now it's cities too, you know, with the Nicola.
What do you call that? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I don't know what's going to be next. You know, probably a movie or some other songwriting. But you know, right now I'm focused on
Concentrate.
this
Yeah,
project. Yeah,
good for you, man. It was very nice talking to you, Saro.
well,
You know,
my pleasure.
your music is great, man. You know, all the theater
Thank you.
stuff
Thank
you did,
You're
the
very kind.
film composing and the record label, you know, with all the great musicians, you know, Tony Levin and David Rhodes and Tim Bowness and Karen and Peter Hammill, and so all great, great musicians. So it's good that you're doing what you do for a living. I know it's difficult for a musician to make money. You know, I'm a
Yeah.
computer scientist, so I do this for the passion of music. You know, I don't know how to play music. I don't know how to read, but music has given me so much satisfaction in my life. You know, I put, you know, you put your headphone and you know, you will never be touring, so I cannot see you live. But I put the headphone and on a Friday or 1 o'clock in the morning, I listen to your stuff, or you know, or film score, and it takes me places. Man. It's a beautiful music. It's a beautiful thing in music. See, we live in crazy world with, you know, with Russia and Ukraine and Palestine and Israel, and the world is going crazy. But music, hopefully, is hope for everybody. You know,
that's true. That's true.
it was very nice talking to you, Saro.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Appreciate it.